Martha Dandridge Custis Washington, June 2, 1731 to May 22, 1802, was the wife of George Washington, the first President of the United States. Although the title was not coined until after her death, she served as the inaugural First Lady of the United States, defining the role of the President's wife and setting many precedents that future First Ladies would observe. During her tenure, she was referred to as Lady Washington. Washington is consistently ranked in the upper half of First Ladies by historians. Martha Dandridge first married Daniel Parke Custis in 1750, and the couple had 4 children, 2 of whom survived to adulthood. She was widowed in 1757 at the age of 26, inheriting a large estate. She was remarried to George Washington in 1759, moving to his plantation, Mount Vernon. Her youngest daughter died of epilepsy in 1773, and the Washingtons were unable to conceive any children of their own. Washington became a symbol of the American Revolution after her husband was appointed commander-in-chief of the Continental Army, and she took on a matronly role while visiting encampments when fighting stalled each winter. Her only surviving child, John, died from a camp illness during the war. After the war ended in 1783, Washington sought retirement at Mount Vernon, but she was returned to public life when her husband became President of the United States in 1789. Washington took on the social role of the president's wife reluctantly, becoming a national celebrity in the process. She found this life unpleasant, feeling that she was restricted and wishing for retirement. In addition to hosting weekly social events, Washington understood that how she composed herself would reflect on the nation, both domestically and abroad. As such, she struck a careful balance between the dignity associated with a head of state's wife and the humility associated with Republican government. The Washingtons returned to Mount Vernon in 1797, and she spent her retirement years greeting admirers and advising her successors. She was widowed for a second time in 1799, and she died 2.5 years later in 1802. Martha Dandridge was born on June 2, 1731, on her parents' plantation Chestnut Grove in the colony of Virginia. She was the oldest daughter of John Dandridge, a Virginia planter and immigrant from England, and Frances Jones, the granddaughter of an Anglican rector. Her father was also a county clerk. Martha had 3 brothers and 4 sisters. John, 1733 to 1749, William, 1734 to 1776, Bartholomew, 1737 to 1785, Anna Maria, Fanny, Bassett, 1739 to 1777, Frances Dandridge, 1744 to 1757, Elizabeth Aylett Henley, 1749 to 1800, and Mary Dandridge, 1756 to 1763. As the oldest of 8, including one sister that was 25 years her junior, Dandridge played a maternal and domestic role beginning early in life. Dandridge may have had an illegitimate half-sister, Anne Dandridge Costin, who was born into slavery. Costin's enslaved mother was of African and Cherokee descent, and her father was believed to be John Dandridge. She may have also had an illegitimate half-brother named Ralph Dandridge, who was most likely white. Dandridge's father was well connected with the Virginia aristocracy despite his relative lack of wealth, and she was taught to behave as a woman of the upper class. She received a relatively high-quality education for the daughter of a planter, though it was still inferior to that of her brothers. She took to equestrianism, at one point riding her horse up and down the stairs of her uncle's home and escaping chastisement because her father was so impressed by her skill. In 1749, Dandridge met Daniel Parke Custis, the son of a wealthy planter in Virginia. They wished to marry, but the father of Dandridge's prospective groom, John Custis, was highly selective of what woman would marry into the family's fortune. She eventually won his approval, and Dandridge married Custis, who was 2 decades her senior, on May 15, 1750. After they were married, Custis moved with her husband to his residence at White House Plantation on the Pamunkey River. Here they had 4 children: Daniel, born 1751, Frances, born 1753, John, born 1754, and Martha, born 1756. Daniel died in 1754 and Frances died in 1757. While her father had owned 15 to 20 slaves, her husband owned nearly 300, making him one of the largest slave owners and wealthiest men in the Virginia colony.